They say rock bottom is where you start over, not where you end. Megan Harper remembered her grandmother saying that, the words echoing on mornings when coffee grounds barely covered the bottom of the tin, and she'd pretend the bitter taste meant strength. Today, the words tasted like defeat. The apartment was still, early morning light sliding across chipped linoleum and half-packed boxes. Megan, 32, hair in a hasty ponytail, stood by the window as the world outside trickled awake. Garbage truck rumbling, neighbor's dog barking, Olivia coughing quietly in the bedroom. Rent overdue again. The mail slot snapped, a sharp click that made her jump. A white envelope, bold red urgent, landed on the mat. She already knew. But the finality of seeing eviction notice in thick letters sent a ripple through her chest, like stepping into cold water. She listened to Olivia's wheezy breathing, that familiar soundtrack of every worry she'd ever known. It hadn't always been this way. Once she'd worn a green cap and tossed it in the air with her degree. Environmental Science, University of Michigan. She'd dreamed of rivers cleaned and forests restored. Then the world got smaller. Layoffs, a broken marriage, insurance denials. Now Megan stood behind a cashier's counter 6 days a week, offering practiced smiles, counting coupons, and measuring each paycheck against the tide of bills. She stared at the notice. 7 days to vacate. Breakfast was quiet, the scrape of spoons and the gentle tap-tap of Olivia's inhaler. 8 years old, quick-witted and shy, Olivia wore her hair in wild curls and looked at the world sideways, always searching, always asking. Megan forced a smile. I made oatmeal. Olivia pushed raisins into the bowl, making a pattern. Did you know raisins were grapes left out in the sun? Is that so? Megan tried to sound amused. Olivia nodded, then paused. Is everything okay, Mom? There it was, her daughter's gaze, too sharp for comfort. Megan hesitated. We might have to find a new place to live. Again? Olivia's eyes flicked to the boxes. Is it 'cause of me getting sick? The question stung, but Megan reached over, squeezing her hand. No, honey, never because of you. Some things just change. After breakfast, Megan began dialing every number she could think of. Social services, the community church, the old landlord who once gave her an extension, even her ex-husband. Each conversation blurred into the next. Sorry, there's nothing we can do. No, the waiting list is months long. Try again next week. Best of luck to you. By noon, her hope was threadbare. Olivia read on the floor, a book about trees open in her lap, sunlight catching the edge of a crayon drawing, a sturdy oak with a little girl peeking out from a treehouse window. Megan watched her, heart aching at how much her daughter dreamed of places she'd never had. She tried her own mother last. The phone rang and rang, then the voicemail. This is Donna. Leave a message. Before the beep. Megan's voice trembled. Hi, Mom. Never mind. We're okay. A knock at the door, softer than the mail slot, but insistent. Megan wiped her eyes and opened it. Mrs. Dorsey from down the hall, arms folded, lips pressed thin. They'll change the locks in a week. I've seen it happen, Megan. I know, Megan said, steady as she could manage. Mrs. Dorsey lingered, eyes softening just a little. I'll keep an eye out for anything. My cousin rents a place, maybe I can... But Megan shook her head, too tired for more empty leads. Thank you. The afternoon crawled by. Megan sorted through drawers, tossing old birthday cards, folded school reports, receipts. She found a photo, herself at 10, grinning, arms flung around a tall, silver-haired woman, Mrs. Eleanor Mason, Megan's favorite teacher, a safe harbor in those lost, rough years after her father left. She remembered afternoons in Eleanor's garden, learning to recognize birds and read the sky. She'd written letters sometimes, but lost touch over the years. That evening, as Olivia coughed herself to sleep, Megan sat on the edge of the bed and watched her chest rise and fall, counting the seconds between breaths. The moon slipped through faded curtains, lighting up a hand-drawn tree pinned above the headboard. Megan traced the branches with her eyes, as if searching for a path. The phone rang, an unknown number. Megan almost let it go, but something made her pick up. "Is this Megan Harper?" The voice was gentle, older. "Yes, this is she." "This is Robert Fielding. I'm the attorney for Eleanor Mason's estate." Megan's breath caught. "Eleanor? I'm sorry to share that Mrs. Mason passed last month. She left instructions regarding you." Megan pressed her palm to her forehead, unsure if she was dreaming. "There is property in Riverwood. It's an unusual inheritance. She called it the Treehouse. Mrs. Mason asked that you come as soon as possible." Megan sat there, phone trembling in her hand, trying to find words. I didn't know she remembered me, so. What is it exactly?" Robert hesitated. "She left a letter for you. And keys. I can explain more when you arrive." After she hung up, Megan stared at the dark ceiling, heart pounding. Olivia murmured in her sleep, clutching her stuffed fox. A treehouse. Inheritance. Riverwood. A town she hadn't seen in 20 years. Megan felt the faintest flicker of hope, uncertain and fragile, like a green shoot poking up through cracked concrete. Morning would come, bringing its own struggles. But for the first time in a long while, Megan lay awake thinking not just of endings, but of beginnings, of what might be waiting for them among the trees. The Harper car was a battered blue Corolla, one headlight fogged with age, back seat packed tight with boxes, pillows, and Olivia's beloved stuffed fox. Megan drove with both hands clenching the wheel, squinting as pine trees and faded barns slipped by. The trip from the city to Riverwood took 2 hours, but it felt like crossing into another life. Riverwood appeared at the bend of the river, sleepy and green, American flags faded by years of sun, wind chimes jangling on porch beams. The main street was just a cluster of brick buildings, barbershop, diner, antique store with a "Help Wanted" sign, before thinning into gravel and weeds. It was the kind of place where folks paused to wave, but also watched strangers a little too long. Megan parked in front of the attorney's office, Olivia's nose pressed to the window. "Is that a real hardware store, Mom? It has a chicken on the sign." "Sure is," Megan said, her tone light, though nerves twisted in her stomach. Inside, Robert Fielding looked just like his voice, kind, a little tired, with silver glasses and hands that shook slightly as he poured lemonade. He handed Megan an envelope, her name written in Eleanor's looping hand, and a brass key attached to a wooden tag shaped like an acorn. Megan ran her thumb over the name, a mix of grief and gratitude tightening her throat. "I know it's not what most people expect," Robert said quietly. "Eleanor was different. She wanted this to go to someone who would understand." Olivia leaned forward. We're going to see a treehouse? Robert smiled at her. Not just any treehouse, kiddo. This one's been there as long as I can remember. Eleanor built it herself out past the river bend. You might say it's more than meets the eye. Back in the car, Olivia's questions tumbled out. Did Mrs. Mason have any pets? Did she really live in the tree? Oh, why did she leave it to you? I don't know, honey. Megan squeezed Olivia's knee. I guess we'll find out together. They drove down a rutted lane, wheels crunching over acorns and pine needles. At the end stood a rusted gate, chained loosely, with a wooden sign. Mason, private. The air was thick with the scent of moss and earth, river water singing somewhere nearby. The treehouse appeared through a tangle of green, an ancient oak, trunk thick as a small car, branches reaching wide and wild. High above, tucked among leaves, was a wooden cabin, porch sagging, windows smudged with years of rain. A rope ladder swayed in the wind. Warning signs, no trespassing, danger, keep out, were nailed to the trunk, but ivy had claimed most of the words. Olivia's eyes widened. It looks like something in a fairy tale. Megan forced a laugh. Maybe the haunted kind. She didn't say it, but she'd expected more. Some tidy little cottage, maybe. Not this overgrown puzzle half hidden from the world. They lugged their things from the car, up the creaking steps and into the belly of the treehouse. Inside, dust motes dancing, old glass bottles on the shelf, blueprints pinned to the wall. A faded blanket with stitched sunflowers draped over a sagging couch. A child's rain boots by the door. Olivia ran her fingers along the window frame, leaving streaks in the dust. I like it, Mom. It smells like a forest. Megan opened Eleanor's letter. The handwriting wavered. Ink faded at the edges. Dear Megan, you are here because you see what others miss. This place isn't for everyone. You'll know what to do when the time comes. Trust your instincts and look closer than you think. With love, Eleanor. Below the signature, a short line. For those who truly see. Megan folded the note, unsure if it was comfort or challenge. They spent the afternoon sweeping and wiping, laughter spilling in fits and starts as Olivia chased a startled squirrel out from under the table. Megan unearthed a box of old science magazines, jars full of labeled seeds, and a lantern that still worked with a few shakes. As the sun dipped, casting dappled gold across the planks, Olivia explored every nook. She stopped at a loose floorboard near the tiny loft and tugged. A hollow sound. Megan helped pry it up, and there, hidden beneath the wood, was a small velvet pouch. Inside, a wooden key intricately carved with swirling vines and tiny animals. A fox, an owl, a leaf. It felt smooth and heavy, strangely warm in Megan's palm. Tucked with it, a slip of paper in Eleanor's script. For those who truly see. Megan looked at Olivia, who watched her with wide, shining eyes. What do you think it opens? Olivia shrugged, her curls bouncing. Something important, I bet. That night, they ate peanut butter sandwiches on the porch, listening to frogs and the hush of river water in the dark. The treehouse creaked with the wind, but somehow Megan felt safer here than she had in months. The inheritance wasn't money. It wasn't a rescue. But as Olivia fell asleep beneath the sunflower blanket, clutching the wooden key, Megan realized it might just be something better. A second chance, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those who were willing to look a little deeper. Morning arrived in Riverwood quietly, with dew glinting on the porch rail and the distant sound of a woodpecker tapping out a rhythm. Megan awoke to Olivia's soft voice in the next room, humming as she rearranged her treasures, a pebble, a crayon, the wooden key, into careful rows on the windowsill. The treehouse felt less like a stranger now, its creaks and groans almost friendly, as if welcoming them into a world outside time. After toast and jam, Megan returned to the mystery of the carved key. She examined every door, every drawer, no lock. Olivia tagged along, flashlight in hand, eager for adventure. "Let's try outside," Olivia suggested, her face bright with possibility. The morning sun filtered through thick branches as they circled the tree's massive trunk. Megan ran her hands along the bark, fingertips searching for anything unusual. She almost missed it, a faint outline, half hidden by moss, near the base of the old oak. Megan knelt, scraping away the green to reveal a small, keyhole-shaped indentation, worn smooth by years of rain and time. Her heart thudded. Megan slid the wooden key into the slot. It turned with a quiet click. Olivia gasped. "Mom, look!" A section of the tree's bark swung open on invisible hinges, revealing a narrow spiral staircase spiraling down into darkness. Cold air rose from below, earthy and electric. Megan hesitated, then reached for Olivia's hand. "Stay close, okay?" Step by step, they descended. The air grew cooler, the silence deepening with each turn. At the bottom, Megan fumbled for a light switch. A row of soft white LEDs blinked on, revealing a room unlike anything she'd imagined, a high-tech laboratory hidden beneath the roots. Workbenches lined the walls, crowded with gadgets and glass vials, plants growing in glowing tubes. Touchscreens flickered with data, some left running, others dark. One corner held an old armchair draped with a familiar sunflower blanket, beside a neat stack of worn leather journals. Olivia stared, wide-eyed, at a globe pinned with red and green markers. "It's like a science museum," she whispered. Megan's knees nearly gave out from relief and disbelief. She wandered, tracing her fingers over a model wind turbine, a solar panel no bigger than her hand, notebooks filled with diagrams and equations. She recognized Eleanor's handwriting, looping and precise. Notes about soil regeneration, water purification, a plan for open-source technology, for all people, not just the rich. A computer on the central table powered up with a soft chime. On screen, a screensaver, the image of the treehouse, sunlit and peaceful. Megan tapped the mouse. A login prompt appeared, but below it, a post-it note. Password, River Song. She entered it, hands trembling. The desktop loaded, bursting with files, designs, blueprints, video logs. She clicked one at random. Eleanor's voice filled the room, steady and warm. "June 14th. We're making progress on the aquaponics prototype. If you're watching this, it means you've found the lab. Welcome, friend." Megan stood frozen, emotion bubbling up. Olivia sidled next to her, staring at the screen. They spent hours exploring the lab. Olivia's favorites were the water spiders, tiny robots that could skim the river's surface and collect pollutants. Megan paged through Eleanor's journals, each entry a window into her mentor's relentless curiosity. Her frustration with bureaucracy and greed, her fierce hope for a cleaner world. One passage caught Megan's breath. "If anything happens to me, let the work continue. Secrets are safe in the roots, but solutions belong to everyone. For those who truly see." The path will reveal itself. Outside, the day slipped by. They ate crackers and cheese on the lab's old couch, Olivia clutching a robot spider, Megan absorbed in blueprints for a solar filter. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through a crack in the lab's ceiling, painting golden lines across the concrete floor. Megan stared at the light, heart heavy but alive with new questions. Eleanor had not only remembered her, she'd trusted her with a legacy and maybe a mission. Back upstairs, Megan let Olivia curl up with her journal, drawing pictures of the secret lab. Megan sat on the porch, listening to the river. For the first time in years, possibility pressed in, as real as the breeze lifting her hair. There were mysteries left. Why had Eleanor kept all this hidden? Who else knew? But for tonight, Megan held gratitude close. In this battered treehouse, beneath roots and secrets, she and Olivia had discovered something rare. A new world quietly waiting for them both to step forward, and the first faint sense that maybe, just maybe, they belonged here after all. By the second week in Riverwood, the rhythm of the old treehouse began to shape Megan and Olivia's days. Each morning, sunlight filtered through the patchwork curtains, painting ripples across the floor. Birds announced the hour better than any clock. Megan found herself moving with an unfamiliar steadiness, clearing clutter, cataloging Eleanor's inventions, keeping one eye on the mailbox, half expecting this new life to vanish like a mirage. News of the city woman and her kid living up the Mason Road spread quickly through town. Some neighbors offered apple pies and curious glances. Others kept their distance, shaking their heads at the idea of someone inheriting a pile of old wood and gadgets. Megan felt the weight of their stares at the grocery store, but Olivia's wonder softened the sharp edges. Every day, Olivia discovered something: a painted stone hidden by the roots, a new button to press in the lab, a wild turkey strutting across the yard. One afternoon, as Megan swept the porch, a black SUV pulled up, dust swirling behind its wheels. A man in a pressed suit stepped out, briefcase in hand, smile fixed. He introduced himself as Mr. Barrett, the local attorney. "Ms. Harper, I represent the estate of Mrs. Eleanor Mason," he said, businesslike, though his gaze lingered on the treehouse's crooked steps. "May I come in?" Megan led him to the kitchen, where sunlight danced on chipped tiles. Olivia peered out from behind the banister, clutching the wooden key. Barrett placed a folder on the table and opened it with practiced care. "Eleanor Mason was far more than a local eccentric," he began. "She left you not just this property, but a letter of wishes and a set of legal documents. And a video message." He set up his laptop, screen flickering to life. The familiar face of Eleanor appeared, older, softer around the eyes, but her voice steady. "If you're watching this, Megan, it means you've found the lab. I built this place for a reason. Years ago, I realized fighting the system from within wasn't enough. I created 12 secret research centers. This is only one. They're scattered across the world, each working in quiet ways to keep technology open and accessible. That was always the promise. Nobody owns the future. Not a government, not a corporation. The work must stay free, shared with anyone who wants to heal the earth, not just those with power." Eleanor smiled gently, her hands folded in her lap. "Some will offer you money, or try to buy your silence. Others may threaten you. I chose you, Megan, because you see through the noise. You know what it is to be unseen, and still keep going. Please protect this work. Decide with your heart, not just your wallet. You won't be alone, even when it feels that way. The video ended. Silence swelled, filling the tiny kitchen. Barrett cleared his throat. There are options, of course. The estate could be liquidated. Several parties have expressed interest in purchasing the property and its intellectual assets, substantial offers. Or you can manage the site as a non-profit trust, following Mrs. Mason's wishes, though it won't be easy. The choice is yours, Ms. Harper. After he left, Megan sat for a long time, the folder untouched, Eleanor's words ringing in her head. Quick cash could fix everything for a while. New apartment, medical care for Olivia, a fresh start. The temptation flickered, bright and sharp. But then Olivia came in, cheeks rosy from playing by the river, carrying a dandelion bouquet. I made you something, Mom. Megan knelt, accepting the flowers, watching Olivia's hopeful face. That evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold behind the oak, Megan wandered through the lab. She ran her hands over cold steel and humming wires, paused before the rows of Eleanor's journals, each one a testament to stubborn hope. Megan realized the inheritance was bigger than walls or money. It was a vision, a living thing that needed caretaking, just like the old tree. She sat on the porch with Olivia, sharing slices of pie left by a neighbor. The treehouse lights flickered on as night deepened, fireflies drifting between the branches. Megan listened to the sounds, the far-off laughter of children in town, the river's hush, the secret heartbeat of this new place. For the first time, the future felt like a question worth answering. And Megan knew with a quiet certainty that whatever she chose next would shape not just her own life, but 1,000 unseen tomorrows. The first letter from EnviroCorps Inc. arrived folded neat and heavy on glossy letterhead, slipped into Megan's mailbox between coupons and electricity bills. At first glance, it looked like a friendly invitation, a partnership opportunity, bright with polite phrases and promises of generational wealth. But even the logo, sharp and metallic, felt out of place against the treehouse's worn wood and dandelion bouquets. Megan read it twice, then a third time, Olivia humming in the background as she built a house of sticks and pebbles near the porch. The letter was signed by a name Megan didn't know. Amanda Klein, Senior Director, Strategic Acquisitions, and ended with a direct phone number. By sunset, a second envelope had arrived. This one via courier, pressed urgently into Megan's hands by a man in a pressed suit who barely met her eyes. The message was less subtle. EnviroCorps offered a sum that made Megan's breath catch, more money than she'd seen in her life. The price: exclusive rights to everything in the lab, including all notes, data, and proprietary technologies developed on the premises. Megan's fingers trembled as she held the check. She looked around the kitchen. Olivia's drawings taped to the fridge, the wooden key on its hook, Eleanor's faded blanket draped over the chair. Selling meant freedom from debt, certainty for Olivia. Yet, as she set the check on the table, an unease coiled inside her, like a warning. That night, Megan tried to sleep. The crickets were loud, the air thick with the scent of pine sap and earth. She replayed Eleanor's video message, the words, "Decide with your heart, not just your wallet," ringing in the hush. Finally, as dawn pinked the sky, she scribbled a reply to EnviroCorps. "Thank you for your interest, but I am not selling. The work will remain open source, per Mrs. Mason's wishes." She hit send, hands cold. Olivia woke to find her mother sipping coffee, eyes on the window, watching the wind move through the trees. The pushback came swiftly. At the grocery store, Megan overheard two women by the frozen foods. "That's the one says she owns Mason's place, turning down millions, can you imagine?" The town's Facebook page buzzed with rumors. Maybe Megan was lying. Maybe she'd already sold out. Maybe she was planning something shady, like those city folks always did. And then came the news stories. Small at first, then louder. Local woman inherits valuable green technology, refuses to share with community. The comments below stung. Who does she think she is? Must be a scam. Those labs are probably dangerous anyway. Olivia started noticing the change too. Kids at school snickered behind her back. One morning, as Megan dropped her off, she saw Olivia hesitate at the steps, clutching her inhaler tighter than usual. "Why don't they like us?" Olivia asked quietly one evening, poking at her macaroni and cheese. Megan bit her tongue. "People get scared when things are different. Sometimes they listen to the wrong stories." A week later, a sleek black car rolled down their lane and stopped. Two men in matching suits stepped out, their smiles brittle as glass. "Ms. Harper, we're from EnviroCorps. Can we have a word?" Megan met them on the porch, the sun dipping behind the trees. They spoke in measured tones, explaining the benefits of their offer, how the technology would be better protected in corporate hands, how it was far too advanced for a small-town setup. When Megan repeated her answer, the smiles faded. "People are watching, Ms. Harper. You don't want to make the wrong decision for your daughter." The threat wasn't spoken outright, but Megan heard it just the same. Later that week, Olivia came home crying, her backpack ripped. Megan found a note inside, scrawled in childish block letters, "Treehouse freaks." That night, Megan sat awake on the porch, lantern light flickering as she wrote to Eleanor in her mind, asking what to do. But even as fear gnawed at her, Megan realized something was shifting. Neighbors brought over bread and small kindnesses. A local teacher stopped by with a book on renewable energy, saying, "My brother's kid loves science. Maybe Olivia would like this." One woman from the hardware store pressed a slip of paper into Megan's hand, an email for someone in environmental law. The world outside pressed hard, but inside the old treehouse, Megan and Olivia clung to their rituals, reading Eleanor's journals, tinkering with the robot spiders, lighting candles as dusk settled in. Olivia started a logbook, sketching inventions and jotting down questions. Sometimes, when Megan caught her daughter's eye across the table, she saw not just fear, but something steely and bright, a seed of stubborn hope. The treehouse, battered and creaking, stood firm in the wind, branches holding tight against the storm. Riverwood's nights turned cooler, cicadas fading, and the hush of autumn settling in. Megan moved through her days with a quiet determination, shopping in the next town, fixing leaks, watching Olivia's shoulders tense whenever the school bus doors opened. There were moments when the weight of it all, the rumors, the pressure, the isolation, felt too much. Yet, every night she returned to Eleanor's lab, running her fingers over the maps, rereading journal entries, searching for some next step. One evening, as Olivia finished homework in the kitchen, Megan sat before the old computer in the secret lab. She'd found an encrypted folder labeled Outreach. Inside, a long list of contacts, emails, and video addresses, each marked with a small globe icon and the word friend. Megan hesitated, but as a branch brushed the window, she remembered Eleanor's words. "You won't be alone, even when it feels that way." Heart pounding, she composed a short message, introducing herself, explaining what had happened, asking if anyone still checked these addresses. She sent the message and waited, pulse thudding in her ears. Olivia padded down to the lab, settling in with her sketchbook. The minutes crawled by. Then a soft chime, a reply. Within an hour, faces began appearing on her screen, pixelated by distance but bright with welcome. There was Dr. Kamau in Kenya, his walls lined with solar batteries and seed trays. Ingrid from Germany, surrounded by blueprints and coffee mugs. Raphael in Brazil, waving hello with oil-stained hands. One by one, they shared their stories. Labs hidden in city basements, on rainforest edges, in wind-blown coastal villages. Each faced threats from companies like EnviroCorps, pressure to sell, sabotage, or simply be forgotten. "It's lonely work," Ingrid admitted, voice gentle. "But together, we kept going. We share findings, swap code, patch one another's inventions." Dr. Kamau smiled kindly. "Eleanor said it best. No one owns the wind or the seed. When you're ready, we'll help you defend your site. You're not the first to face a storm." Megan felt something shift inside, a thread of connection pulling tight, weaving her into something much larger than herself. She explained the pressure from EnviroCorps, the bullying at Olivia's school, the uncertainty about what to do next. Raphael nodded. "When they start with rumors, you know they're scared. But now that you've reached out, the network's awake. We'll send volunteers if needed, and you should talk to the press. Tell your side before they twist it further." A plan began to form. Megan drafted an email to an environmental journalist whose articles she'd followed for years. She shared what she could: Eleanor's vision, the danger of losing open technology, the community's importance. Days later, the journalist, Mara, arrived with a battered notebook and an easy laugh. She moved into a tent in the Treehouse yard, asking questions, recording every detail, careful never to push Olivia too far. Volunteers began to trickle in: a college student with a solar panel kit, a retired mechanic who loved tinkering, a science teacher who brought his daughter to play with Olivia and draw inventions. Even some Riverwood neighbors grew curious. They dropped by with muffins, curious questions, and wary but warming eyes. Olivia, once withdrawn, found her courage again in this new energy. She showed the younger children the robot spiders, read them stories in the dappled light under the oak. In the evenings, Megan and the volunteers gathered around the porch table, debating security, sharing stories, sketching out how to protect the lab's data if EnviroCorps pushed harder. Some nights, Megan read late into Eleanor's journals, searching for comfort in her mentor's unfiltered thoughts. "Don't let the world tell you what matters. Listen for the quieter truths, the ones hidden beneath profit and power. Trust the people willing to build something, not just buy it." Riverwood was still divided. Megan heard whispers at the market, saw suspicious glances. EnviroCorps' smear campaign continued. Flyers in town, rumors of lawsuits, threats that rattled her nerves. But now, she was no longer alone. The world was opening up, voices and hands stretching across oceans and time zones, all tied together by Eleanor's stubborn belief that ordinary people, bound by hope, could stand against the current. On the porch one evening, Olivia sat curled beside Megan, lanterns glowing, laughter drifting from the volunteers nearby. Megan brushed a curl from Olivia's cheek, watching her daughter's eyes shine with new confidence. "Are we going to be okay?" Olivia asked, voice soft. Megan looked out over the yard, past the old oak and the shadows lengthening into night. "We're not alone anymore, honey. That makes all the difference." The world was still uncertain, the threats real. But in that small moment, surrounded by quiet courage and the crackle of possibility, Megan believed it too. The first official court summons arrived on a gray Tuesday, tucked beneath the front door beside a paper bag of blueberry muffins left by a neighbor. Megan picked up the envelope with careful fingers, its weight far heavier than the paper should allow. Olivia watched from the kitchen table, her pencil paused mid-doodle, sensing something unspoken in the air. A lawsuit. EnviroCorp Inc. v. Megan Harper. The words blurred and sharpened. A storm on the page. Unlawful possession of proprietary technology. Negligence in protecting trade secrets. Immediate injunction sought. The air inside the treehouse grew thin. Megan reread Eleanor's letters, paced the porch, her mind running in anxious circles. Olivia traced her finger around the rim of her mug, quiet, watching clouds crawl across the afternoon sky. Riverwood buzzed with new gossip. Some townsfolk clucked their tongues, certain that Megan had brought trouble down on everyone. Others, neighbors who'd once been distant, dropped off casseroles and slips of encouragement. Hang in there. You're doing the right thing. The divide deepened, lines drawn not just through the town, but within families, friendships, Sunday church pews. Then the media arrived. At first it was just Mara, the environmental journalist, notebook always at the ready, camera slung over one shoulder. She wrote with warmth, never pushing too hard, sharing Megan's story from the porch or the lab, capturing sunlight on blueprints and Olivia's shy smile. Her article was published online, then spread, shared and reshared by activists, scientists, and strangers from far away. The national outlets followed. Cameras blinked from the treehouse yard. Reporters in neat jackets asked sharp questions. Did Megan truly have the right to these inventions? Was she endangering the town? Was she a hero or just in over her head? In the evenings, the volunteers tried to keep things normal. There were board games and laughter, Olivia learning to bake banana bread with a teacher from the city. Yet at night, Megan read legal documents by lantern light, fear and exhaustion tracing the lines of her face. Court day arrived cold and clear, a morning that smelled of river and old wood. Megan wore her cleanest shirt and borrowed a blazer from Mara. Olivia squeezed her hand all the way into town. The courthouse was a brick building with tall windows, echoing with the voices of old men and children playing on the steps. Inside, the courtroom was bright and too big. EnviroCorp's attorneys, polished and sure, laid out arguments with practiced precision. Megan was an amateur, a danger to public safety, a thief of intellectual property. Megan's own attorney, a wiry woman named Gwen, with sharp eyes and a soft voice, spoke of Eleanor's wishes, of open-source knowledge and the dangers of corporate monopolies on green technology. She presented journal entries, video clips, blueprints stamped for public use. The evidence shimmered and blurred as it passed from hand to hand. Midway through the hearing, Megan took the stand. Her hands shook as she faced the judge, the crowd, the cameras. She told her story simply, about losing everything, about the strange gift Eleanor had left behind, about watching her daughter struggle to breathe in a world that seemed intent on looking away. She spoke of neighbors, those who helped, those who doubted, and of the community that had grown around the treehouse, fueled by hope more than certainty. When the judge asked why she hadn't just sold out, Megan's answer hung in the courtroom's hush. Because I've learned that real value isn't in what you can sell, but what you can share. Technology like this, Eleanor's vision, should belong to all of us. If only the powerful get to decide what's possible, the rest of us lose before we've even begun. The judge nodded, scribbling notes. Outside, as the sun dipped low, Megan stood with Olivia and the volunteers on the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions. Mara caught Megan's eye and nodded, a small, steady gesture. Olivia slipped her hand into her mother's, breathing deep. The outcome was uncertain. Some nights Megan still lay awake, listening to wind rattle the treehouse walls, counting the days until the next court date. But each morning brought small acts of courage, a neighbor's wave, a handwritten note tucked in the mailbox, the laughter of children playing beneath the oak. The world could still turn cruel and sharp, but in the eye of the storm, Megan clung to something unbreakable. Her daughter's hand, the quiet support of friends, and the belief that the truth, once spoken out loud, could not be unsaid. The storm in Riverwood was no longer just local. By late October, the world beyond the treehouse seemed to lean closer, faces and voices arriving on glowing screens, in crisp envelopes, and through the battered mailbox at the edge of the road. What began as whispers, one mother's battle with a faceless company, became a wave. It started with letters. First a few, then dozens, then so many that the post office called to say Megan would need a bigger box. Children from Brazil and Germany and Kenya sent hand-drawn pictures, windmills spinning in wild colors, trees with roots tangled around the earth, tiny figures waving from green canopies. A class in Norway mailed a photo of their own treehouse, the sign above the door painted, "For everyone." Olivia hung each picture in her room, the walls blooming with distant hope. Environmental organizations picked up Megan's cause. Sierra Club, Greenpeace, dozens of smaller networks, all sharing Mara's articles, calling for fairness and transparency. Petitions spread, gathering signatures by the thousands. A UN representative emailed Megan personally, offering encouragement and the promise to send an observer to the next hearing. Journalists from around the world requested interviews, some just wanting to know how it felt to be at the heart of something bigger than any one person. Megan still had to remind herself to breathe, to move through the days as before. Riverwood remained divided. Some townsfolk grumbled about all the attention, wary of outsiders and cameras. But others came forward, their support now open and unwavering. At the hardware store, the cashier quietly slipped Megan a note. "Don't give up. My daughter believes in you." At school, Olivia received a card signed by classmates she'd thought would never speak to her again. "Sorry," one scribbled, "for being mean. You're braver than us." The network Eleanor dreamed of began to show itself. Megan joined late-night video calls with scientists and teachers from all over the world, faces flickering in the warm light of laptops and phones, speaking in accents that stumbled and blended together. They strategized, sharing what had worked for them when facing similar threats. Open source everything, make the data public, force the story into the light where no corporation could quietly swallow it up. With help, Megan and her allies published Eleanor's inventions online, blueprints for solar filters, code for robot spiders, step-by-step guides to building wind turbines from scrap. Other research centers in the network did the same, releasing their own guarded knowledge in a coordinated wave. The data spread fast, picked up by university students, hobbyists, and activists alike. Suddenly, Megan's fight was no longer just about the treehouse in Riverwood. It was about access and fairness, the right for anyone, no matter where they lived or how much money they had, to heal their corner of the world. The media changed their tune. News anchors who had once questioned Megan's motives now covered the story's global impact. Interviews with children reading Olivia's favorite books, pieces on scientists who called Eleanor a quiet pioneer. The judge overseeing the case asked for extra time to consider new evidence. The pressure on EnviroCorps grew. Shareholders began to ask uncomfortable questions at meetings. Activists staged rallies outside corporate offices, waving cardboard cutouts of wind turbines and chanting for transparency. Olivia felt the change too. She started carrying the wooden key on a ribbon around her neck, no longer hiding it in her backpack. She answered questions about her mom and the treehouse with clear eyes, even speaking in front of her class when a teacher asked what it all meant. "It means we share things," Olivia said simply, "because that's how you make the world better. You don't just keep it for yourself." Megan listened, her heart swelling with pride and something softer, older, gratitude that after so many lonely years, hope had found them. She found herself trusting more, accepting help, letting volunteers handle the press, giving interviews by the river, her voice steadier with every telling. As the days shortened and the leaves burned gold and red, Megan and Olivia stood in the treehouse yard, watching volunteers string lights through the old oak's branches. Music played, laughter rising, children from every corner of town chasing fireflies in the dusk. It wasn't over yet. Court still loomed, and threats lingered at the edges. But the world had shifted. Megan knew that no matter what happened, the story now belonged to everyone. And in that wide, uncertain hope, she and Olivia felt themselves, at last, truly home. The day of the verdict arrived wrapped in the hush of early winter. Frost painted silver on the grass, and the old oak behind the treehouse stood leafless but strong, its bare branches clutching at a cloudless sky. Megan woke before dawn, her breath fogging in the chilly air, and watched Olivia sleep, the wooden key still on its ribbon around her neck, rising and falling with each gentle breath. Court was in the city, a place of hard edges and impatient horns. The courthouse, all columns and echoing floors, felt foreign after weeks, surrounded by river air and the creak of wood. Still, Megan stepped inside with Olivia's hand in hers, the two of them a quiet island in the tide of reporters, attorneys, and local onlookers who filled the hall. Inside the courtroom, the judge looked weary, his stack of files thick and untidy. EnviroCorps' lawyers, suits crisp and voices cold, argued their case with practiced efficiency. Megan had endangered valuable assets, incited public unrest, jeopardized technological advancement. Their final plea was for the court to grant them exclusive control over all intellectual property, for the greater good, they said, for innovation. Megan's attorney, Gwen, spoke calmly, her words like small stones dropped into a still pond. She called on Eleanor's journals, played videos of the global network, and produced the blueprints now freely available online, evidence that what was once hidden was now a gift to the world, impossible to reclaim or privatize. Gwen reminded the court of the thousands who had written letters, the petitions, the children drawing windmills and treehouses, the voices from far-off countries echoing Eleanor's dream. And when the judge called on Megan to speak, the room quieted. She told them, simply, what it meant to inherit not just a place or a paycheck, but a responsibility. She spoke of nights lying awake in fear, of Olivia's struggles and small triumphs, of neighbors whose kindness had surprised her, and the letters from strangers that made their world feel wider. She spoke not as a scientist or a hero, but as a mother, of what it meant to believe, for the first time in years, that her choices mattered. "It's not just about what we've built here in Riverwood," she said, her voice steady. "It's about what we all have the right to build, no matter where we start, no matter how little we own. This work was never mine. It belongs to everyone who needs clean air, or a second chance, or hope for something better than what they were given." The judge listened, unsmiling, his pen scratching notes. The silence was thick as the attorneys finished, each side clinging to their arguments as the afternoon sun angled through high windows. It took hours, but at last the verdict came. The judge's voice was flat but final. The research, the inventions, the entire legacy of Eleanor Mason would be protected as a public trust, managed by a nonprofit with Megan as its first guardian. EnviroCorps' claims were dismissed, the company fined for intimidation, their smear campaign publicly condemned. Any further attempt to privatize the technology would be met with severe penalties. As the courtroom emptied, Megan sat frozen in her chair. It was Olivia's small hand that pulled her up, her daughter's grin shining through the crowd. Outside, the world felt changed. Reporters rushed to capture her reaction, but Megan just smiled, too tired and grateful for words. Olivia stood beside her, chin lifted, as Gwen shook their hands and volunteers clapped her on the back. Returning to Riverwood, Megan was met by neighbors, some who had doubted, now offering awkward smiles, others already stringing paper lanterns in the trees. The treehouse, for the first time, truly felt like home. In the days that followed, Megan threw herself into her new role. She worked with the network, planned workshops for kids, helped publish new research, and watched Olivia, more confident now, teach other children about solar panels and river bugs. They planted young oaks around the old treehouse, each one a promise for tomorrow. One afternoon, Megan found herself alone in the lab, sun falling warm through the ceiling cracks. She reread the final lines in Eleanor's journal. "If you're reading this, you've made it farther than most. Remember, guardianship is not about owning, but about tending, about believing the world deserves your courage. Give freely, and you'll never stand alone." Megan closed the journal, smiling through quiet tears. The battle was over, but the real legacy, one of hope, stewardship, and quiet bravery, was just beginning. She climbed the stairs to the porch, finding Olivia and the other children laughing under the wide sky. The treehouse door swinging open to anyone who wanted to learn, or dream, or simply belong. Morning in Riverwood arrived with a hush and a promise. The world seemed washed clean, sunlight pooling on the kitchen floor, a soft wind setting the oak's new leaves trembling. Megan moved through the old treehouse with a sense of calm she hadn't known in years, each footstep a small act of gratitude. Outside, the yard was alive. Volunteers strung solar lanterns between branches, laughter drifting on the breeze. Children, some from town, others from nearby counties, raced between garden beds, their voices echoing across the grass. Olivia knelt with a new friend, planting seeds in a patch of fresh soil, her hands caked with earth, her smile unguarded and bright. Megan watched them from the porch, a mug of tea warming her hands. For the first time, she felt the house was no longer Eleanor's, no longer just hers, but something communal, a place alive with possibility. The pain of the past months had settled into memory, still real but softened by what had grown in its place. The treehouse had changed too. Once a secret refuge, it had become a center for learning and connection. The lab was open to local schools and visiting scientists, its tables crowded with sketches, seeds, circuit boards. Megan spent her days guiding students through experiments, her evenings answering emails from as far away as Mumbai and Buenos Aires. She spoke at town meetings, not as a stranger, but as a neighbor, her voice steady and sure. Everywhere, there were signs of transformation. Young oaks and maples lined the riverbank, each tree planted in a child's name. Solar panels gleamed atop old barns. The town's main street held a new mural, a swirling river, a great oak, a dozen hands reaching toward the sun. People talked of new businesses, of plans for a community garden, of sharing skills and stories. Yet, it was in the quietest moments that Megan most felt the weight and wonder of what they had built. Early in the morning, she'd walk the path to the river, dew clinging to her boots, the world silent but for the call of a mourning dove. Sometimes she'd pause by the fence, watching Olivia and her friends invent new games, their laughter free of the old fears. One evening, as twilight gathered and the fireflies blinked on, Megan and Olivia sat together beneath the old oak, a quilt spread on the grass. They listened to the sounds of music from the porch, the murmur of grown-ups sharing stories, the crackle of a small bonfire. Olivia traced a finger along the edge of the wooden key, now faded, but still strong. "Do you think Mrs. Mason would like it here now?" she asked softly. Megan smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Olivia's face. "I think she'd be proud. Not because we kept it all perfect, but because we shared it, because we made it grow." Olivia nodded, looking up at the stars pricking through the darkening sky. "I want to plant more trees next year, and maybe build a little house in the willow by the river." "We can do that," Megan said, her heart swelling. "Anything you want. This is our beginning." As the evening wore on, more children joined them under the oak, singing songs learned from parents, teachers, each other. Megan watched them, seeing not just her daughter, but a tapestry of lives woven together, each with their own hurts, their own hopes, finding common ground in a place once forgotten. When the last lantern flickered out, Megan lingered on the porch, the air full of the sweet scent of grass and wood smoke. She looked up at the treehouse, its windows glowing softly, and let herself rest in the moment. Not every battle left scars. Some left gardens. The old fears hadn't vanished, but they no longer held her captive. The world outside Riverwood would change again, and new challenges would come. But here, beneath the wide sky, Megan had found something lasting. Community, purpose, and the quiet, stubborn belief that what she'd inherited wasn't a burden, but a gift to be passed on, tendered, grown, and given freely. In the end, the greatest legacy wasn't money or property. It was courage. The courage to stay, to share, to protect the fragile future woven through the lives of strangers and kin alike. It was the patience to let a wounded place become a haven. It was hope, rooted in the soil, carried in every breath, echoing through each new beginning. The story of Megan and Olivia is more than a tale of struggle or victory. It's a testament to the quiet power of healing, how places and people, when given a chance, can become more than their scars. The old treehouse became a symbol, not just of inheritance, but of trust. That every generation has a choice, and that even the most fragile beginnings can bear fruit when tended with care and courage. It reminds us that what truly endures is not what we own, but what we give, what we share, and the community we nurture in the process. Legacy isn't written in wealth, but in the lives we touch and the futures we make possible.